Hello and welcome to The Locker Room. I'm Tom Corrigan. Today I'm joined by David, Jordan and Ryan de Souza. Welcome to you both, guys.
Thanks, mate.
On this week's show, we look at the Raiders season and find out if they can do it again next year, and we see if Canberra is suitable to host an A-League team. First up, elite sport is littered with stories about athletes moving away from home at a young age to try to make it to the big time. Pursuing the dream might seem glamorous, but it comes with plenty of challenges. Having few friends, dealing with the cutthroat competition for a contract, and being without the comforts of home are as significant issues for a teenager to deal with. To get an insight into those challenges, the Locker Room's John Croyder spoke to Canberra Raiders rookie Harry Van Dartel, who packed up his life in Dubbo to chase his boyhood dream.
A few years back, I was in the Country Carnival, and it was just Dave Hamilton was there. He was the recruitment officer here then, and he just offered me a scholarship and stuff like that and just kept an eye on me for a few years. So, and then he offered me a contract last year.
So what did the scholarship include?
So it was just for a gym membership and just a bit of gear and every now and then, and come down once a year just to do a bit of training and stuff like that. And so it was good.
So let you develop like in your hometown with your support network around you?
Yeah, definitely. So I had a really good support network, and he just let me develop myself. And then when I come down here, it was just more about the footy side of things. So it was good.
Yeah. What was that like being person in control of your own routines?
It was definitely hard because I knew I had to put on weight and such things like that, but it was probably until I got down here I didn't realise how much it actually meant, but I didn't actually do as much as I needed to.
Yeah. So what was it like moving from Dubbo to Canberra?
It was a massive step for me because I just finished school, and I think it was about 3 days later I jumped in the car and left my family at home and things like that, and moved down. Like, my brother was down here, which was really good and helped me settle in and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a really big thing for me and something I wasn't used to, and took me a while to get used to. So
yeah, did the club help you settle in, or did you just go straight to your brother's place?
I just moved straight in with my brother, and then just the next day I came to training, and it was all pretty surreal, and everyone was really good and helped me fit in and stuff like that, like the welfare guys and Whitey and Barry and stuff like that, so it was really good.
How did you feel rocking up at the training ground for the first time?
I was definitely really nervous. Didn't know anyone, probably knew one person, and I guess it was just little fish getting thrown in a big pond kind of thing. So yeah, it was scary.
What was it like living away from home?
It was I definitely miss the cooking side of things and Mum's cooking and just coming home to a meal and stuff like that. But I sort of had to come independent and cook my own meals and do everything that Mum usually does. But yeah, it's something that I had to do and be done, so it was good.
So second tier contracts part-time, so
Yep.
Do you do anything outside of playing football as well?
Yeah, so I'm working just behind a bar, just having a gap year for this year, and then I'm going to go to uni next year, so just sort of gap year, earn a bit of money and things like that, yeah.
What are you going to study?
Yeah, so I'm going to study primary school teaching. I deferred for a year, and yeah, hopefully get into that next year.
So you've got 1 year left in the under-20s. What do you think you need to do between now and then to be able to achieve your goal?
Definitely need to put on weight. Put on about 9 kilos already, so I guess I just need to put on probably another 6 or 7 kilos in pre-season next year, and that's something it's very doable. So putting on weight and just always knowing what I can do better off coaches and talking to coaches and just doing review.
What do you hope to achieve in football?
I think everyone's dream is to play NRL, and that's definitely my dream, but always good to have a backup plan, and the club can help me do that, so that's something I look forward to doing as well.
Guys, we just saw young Harry Van Dartel has a bright future with the club, and the Raiders themselves had a bright season rather. Ryan, how were they able to have such a great campaign this year?
I'm going to take you back a few years ago. Back then, they used to be about developing their own players and trying to bring them into first grade. But that didn't work. You look at the likes of Anthony Milford, who packed up and went to Brisbane for a big contract. He's a star player now, and the Raiders would have done very well with him. But the ex-recruitment officer, David Hamilton, he changed this approach, and he brought in undesired players from other teams, and he really made them work. You look at Blake Austin, BJ Leilua, and Jordan Rapana. They're the lifeblood of this team. They're crazy in attack, probably the best attacking team in the competition. And they're the reason why this team has gone so well.
And Ricky Stewart, he played his role this season as well, didn't he?
100%. He added that 90s winning culture when the Raiders were just unbeatable. And he's moulded that with all these players. And it's paid off.
Because for me, Josh Hodgson was the main reason why the Raiders did so well this year. At dummy half, all the Raiders' attacks started with the ball in his hands, and he linked up the play really, really well. And when he went off injured during that semi-final against the Sharks, and after that, they sort of lost the way in attack, and it's making me wonder that if the players like Hodgson or BJ Leilua or Rapana get injured, whether the Raiders fall apart, whether they rely on these players too much. So Dave, next season, what can we expect from the Raiders?
So I think we can see another a really high-level season from the Raiders again. As you mentioned, they've got to keep that core of players together and healthy if they want to succeed. But I think we're seeing them in something of a premiership window. They're on an upwards trend over the last couple of seasons, and I think they've got another 1 to 2 years at the most to really have a good shot at winning the premiership. That right side of tack of Leilua and Rapana is obviously one of the best in the league. And if Hodgson and Croker can keep running the show through the centre, then they're undoubtedly a big chance to take it all next year.
I think you're right. It is definitely these next couple of years, because by then, these undesired players I mentioned, they're going to be worth a lot of money. So
Absolutely.
the Raiders won't be able to afford them. It's now or never.
Next is a story we don't often hear in sport, the athlete whose career doesn't have a happy ending. Jared Killey has spent most of his 25 years chasing the black line up and down a swimming pool. His potential won him a scholarship at the Australian Institute of Sport, where he became a national champion in middle and long distance events. But 6 years later, and after 2 failed attempts to make the London and Rio Olympics, Killey is considering retirement. He told the locker room's Trent Pollard he retires with some regrets.
So Joe, did that ambition of going to an Olympic Games and that goal of making it to the top level of your sport, did that drive and control the way you lived and the way you thought outside of training as well?
Absolutely. You make sacrifices all the time. Growing up, you wouldn't go to parties or wouldn't necessarily hang out with friends while you're at school for certain reasons, because you had to have training early the next morning at 4:30 when I was at home in Newcastle. Or when I was even down here in Canberra, everything revolved around that training first and foremost, and everything came second to that.
Tell me about how you felt and how you thought going into those Olympic qualifying. And tell me if there was a difference between the London qualifying event and also the Rio qualifying event. Were you confident in your own ability to make it to the Olympics?
I was confident in myself, but with London I probably wasn't mentally prepared for that added pressure of an Olympic trials. It was a very different experience going into those trials as opposed to any other nationals, and I was probably a bit overwhelmed by that. Whereas this year, Rio trials, I was definitely mentally prepared for it. I'd been there before, I knew what to expect. I was just a bit physically underdone, as it turns out.
So the moment you've touched the wall at the national event qualifying for the Olympics, you turn around to see the clock. What was your immediate response when you saw that time?
I saw the time. I knew I'd missed out already before, without even looking at the time. I knew I hadn't produced enough. I could see that other competitors had gone past me. So the time was irrelevant at that point. It's more about getting those top 2 spots to get into the Olympics.
So let me in on how your life changed from the moment you found out you weren't going to Rio. The moment you saw the time, or as you say, you already knew that you weren't going to qualify. We hear so often about these successful athletes like Ian Thorpe and Petria Thomas, these great named athletes. We never hear about these athletes who don't quite make it. How did that sort of change your life immediately after?
When you are standing up on those blocks, you are by yourself, but the day-to-day training environment isn't like that at all. So when an athlete like myself misses the team, it's not just me who feels that burden. There's coaches, there's sports scientists, physiologists, physiotherapists, massage staff. You work with probably close to 20 people in my immediate support network that felt it just as hard as me. And although you can feel alone and isolated at that time, it's good to have other people going through it with you, I guess, sometimes. We work with sports psychologists and that sort of thing as well to help talk through it.
Final question, do you have any regrets?
Yeah, I think everyone's probably got some regrets, but it's how you move on and learn from those sort of regrets or mistakes, I suppose, and how to make yourself better, I suppose. I see myself, I've been a professional athlete, I suppose, for the last 6 years. It's not, and a lot of people wouldn't see that, I suppose, if you're not an Olympian. I suppose for most people swimming is a once every 4 year sport. But it teaches you a lot about resilience and goal setting. It takes a lot away from it, and knowing how to push through when things do get difficult as well. really good for me, I think.
We just saw a swimmer who's failed to make the Rio Olympics, but those who did qualify for Rio failed in the pool. Guys, now that we're at the start of a new Olympic cycle, should we make any changes before Tokyo?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Australian trial system at the moment sees us trial 3 or 4 months out from the Olympic Games in an attempt to fit another training cycle in before we go away to competition. The American method at the moment is trial 2-3 weeks out from the Olympics. You pick informed swimmers who are like peaking and hitting good times, and it shows at the Olympics that their method is far more successful.
So there's obviously a desire and an intent to copy the American system, but what stats do we have that says their system is more beneficial when compared to ours?
So across 52 swims from US athletes at the Olympic Games, we saw 27 improving times and only 15 slower times, which is quite impressive. But for the Australians, only 8 times out of 49 improved, and we saw a horrible 34 slower times. It's just not acceptable.
He's 34 tells you something, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It really shows that we need to consider switching things up before we start this cycle of prepping for Tokyo.
And now Ian Thorpe, he's come out and said that we put too much pressure on our swimmers. And I think we should listen to him because he's probably Australia's one of our greatest Olympians. He carries a lot of credibility. What do you think, Ryan? He's right, isn't he?
The Torpedo has expressed interest as to whether we can change up our approach before Tokyo in 2020. He's wondered if there's a way we can head into a major meet like the Olympics without all this pressure on our swimmers. Because if you look at Rio or London, that pressure derailed both teams. It wasn't good. So Thorpe's mentioned the 3 big US swimmers, Michael Phelps, Ryan Lochte and Katie Ledecky. They're the only swimmers in that team who head into a meet with pressure. Whereas the Australian team, anyone who's performed up until that competition just gets it heaped on them. So yeah, the Torpedo wonders if we can change this because it needs to be done.
I don't think we can. I think the swimming team is too much of a focal point of our Olympic team. They dictate essentially whether or not we have a good Olympics. We don't have another cohort or another team of athletes to take the attention away from them in the same way that, say, the Americans do with their athletics team or their basketball team and something like that.
Because you're right, I mean, if our swimmers have a bad Olympics, we have a bad Olympics, don't we?
Absolutely.
That's problematic in itself. I think it needs to be changed.
At the FFA Centre of Excellence, 22 footballers arrive from all over the country every 2 years to begin their chance in Australia's national team program. Relocating at a young age is never easy, particularly on your own. But with an AFC Under-16 championship win under this group's belt already, Perth youngster Jaden Selden has settled in right in Canberra. Our very own David Jordan has a story.
The FFA Centre of Excellence has a great track record of producing Australian football's big things, including Craig Foster, Brett Emerton, Lucas Neal, and more recently Robbie Cruz. Now, Jaden Selden has moved across the country from Perth to have his shot at breaking through in the Australian football scene.
I was actually pretty good with it. Like, I found it pretty easy for me because the homestay family that I was with, they were very good to me and they made me fit in very well.
The squad of 23 are worked hard almost every day, but technical director Peter DeRue knows that challenging the talented group is important.
When you want to achieve something in life, you sometimes have to be uncomfortable, otherwise it's not going to happen. Being comfortable means no learning, and we try to learn them to everything that comes down that path. Don't see it as an obstacle, but see it as a challenge.
Selden and his teammates spend much of their time in the pouch, the dedicated hangout area, either studying, watching television, or even playing PlayStation. This team space helps to keep the whole side grounded and together. Very important when considered they are still just a group of teenagers.
Look, young kids, they're going to go in different directions, and we hopefully can guide them into the right directions. In the end, they're going to make the decision on what they end up doing. But no, in the beginning, and as the time goes on, we expect them. They'll make mistakes. They'll do something which they probably shouldn't have done, and then again we guide them and help.
For Selden, while studying almost seems more of a distraction, he has a clear focus on what he wants to achieve while based in Canberra.
My goal was to come here and give the best shot I could, like give everything and leave everything out on the pitch, and come off as tired as I can, and every training session always wanting to get better.
Young Jaden Selden is based in Canberra, where we just saw Canberra Olympics fairy tale run in the FFA Cup, which unfortunately came to an end. However, the noise for a Canberra A-League side is now as loud as ever. Guys, with expansion on the cards for the A-League, do you think Canberra is suitable for an A-League team?
Boys, I hate to do this to you, but I don't think we should have an A-League team in Canberra. Just look at the Brumbies and the Capitals. They're two very established, pretty large fan-based teams, but they're not financially stable. They need help. If we bring in a brand new sport, how is the team going to survive?
Okay. Sorry, I was going to say, just to jump in, that an A-League side won't be competing against another top-level side in Canberra. You have the Brumbies compete alongside the Raiders and the Giants when they're in town, and also against the local seasons. But the A-League will just run over summer against, I guess, the international cricket season and, a couple of other sports.
Sure, but where are we going to get these players from? Are we going to bring them interstate and pay overs just to get them in? Or do you think we have the talent within Canberra to play at the A-League level?
No, I reckon we're ready. We're more than ready. And Canberra, it's a sporting city, Canberra. And the only thing we don't have is soccer. We have both rugby codes with the Brumbies and Raiders. We have the Capitals for the basketball, like you said. GWS has sort of adopted us, so we have AFL now. All it's missing is like soccer. That's all we need. And look at the Asian Cup that was here last year. The Canberra game saw 10,000 fans walk through the gates each time.
How are we going to keep those crowds going? That's one big game, but this is an entire A-League season. I don't think it's possible.
It's over summer. You've got good weather. You can tie it in with A-League games, and you have families go along to watch 2 matches of football. Like I said, no competition for fans as such, but it's something that needs to happen sooner rather than later. The Mariners are trying to really put their footprint down in Canberra, and if that happens, then that'll be, I think, spell the end for any hopes of Canberra's own A-League team.
Tom, you spoke before about GWS. Why can't we do something similar with the A-League? Bring in a team, adopt a team. We don't need our own team.
Because it's a team is based somewhere else and they come to Canberra for 3 games a year. GWS are here 3 games a year. I'd imagine the Mariners do the same thing. You can't really call Canberra having a home team if one team comes for 3 games in a season. It's not ours. It's not actually our team. I think we need our own one playing every second game here in Canberra.
Absolutely.
I think we're better off gauging a team, adopting a team, gauging the support, and maybe in 5-10 years, then we try and bring out our own.
If you adopt a team now and it picks up its fans, then there's no chance of a second team here in 5 or 10 years.
So we'll just have to wait and see, won't we?
Absolutely.
That's all we have time for on the program, unfortunately. Thank you, Dave and Ryan, for your insights on your company. For all the latest news, go to our website at nowyousee.com.au. I'm Tom Corrigan, and we'll catch you next time in the locker room.